What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. It is Tuesday. I was really busy yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to post my video for the post-game show yesterday for the LA Rams game. We did fall to 1-6 against the Rams on Sunday by the score of 37-10. I've been disappointed by the season, just like probably all of our Atlanta Falcons fans at this point. But on a bigger note, I do want to wish Matt Ryan the best. I did hear good news yesterday that they said it's only a sprained ankle for the injury, and he may be out for 1 to 2 weeks. Good news is we have our bye, so if he misses this game against Seattle, we do have a capable backup in Matt Schaub. So basically, we're playing with house money in this game. In this next game, which I have my post-game video or my pre-game video for the Seahawks game later on this week. But I just want to tackle a couple things. Today, we did trade Mohamed Sanu for a second-round pick to the New England Patriots. Man, I love Mohamed Sanu, man. I think he's one of the best teammates on this team. He's a great player, great leader. Has great hands, runs crisp routes and great routes. Was a big body receiver. One thing I love about Mohamed Sanu is he's one of those glue guys, as I talked about in previous years, like Jonathan Babineau, when we had the Dwight Freeney when he came to Atlanta as a veteran. He always has been a great teammate. When Calvin Ridley was drafted, he knew that eventually Calvin Ridley would take his number 2 spot, and all he did was take Calvin Ridley under his wing and teach him everything that he knows. Calvin Ridley has nothing but positive words for Mohamed Sanu and for Julio Jones. These are two really stand-up guys with Julio and Mohamed Sanu. One thing I love about Mohamed Sanu is that he talks trash to the opponents if they're trying to go at him. When he makes a catch, he looks back at the defenders. He tells them that they can't guard him. Another thing that I love about Mohamed Sanu is he's very aggressive. When he catches the ball, he turns into a running back, and he always tries to run over defenders, and he tries to instill punishment to any defender that tries to tackle him. He always tries to run them over. And I love Mohamed Sanu because he's an excellent player on third down, where he would go through the middle, and he was a big body receiver that could take hits coming across the middle, and he has great hands. 95% of the time you throw the ball to Mohamed Sanu, even though he wasn't targeted a lot in games, the 4, 5, 6 times he was targeted, majority of the times he caught pretty much every single pass that Matt Ryan threw if it was in the vicinity. He has great hands. I think the best catch that I've seen Mohamed Sanu make, or my favorite catch of Mohamed Sanu's time here in Atlanta, was I think it was 2 years ago, 2017. It was a Monday Night Football game against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. He made a nice one-handed catch on a fade pattern in the back of the end zone, and it was a nasty one-hand catch by Mohamed Sanu. But nothing Mohamed Sanu does surprises me. He will have success in New England. I just hate that we traded him to New England because I can't stand New England. I never could stand New England. My hate for them, or my dislike, because I don't like to use the word hate. Hate's a pretty strong word, but my dislike for the New England just got worse when they beat us in the Super Bowl. But I never have liked the New England Patriots, so I hate that we had to trade them there. But at the end of the day, I wish Mohamed Sanu happy trails and nothing but the best. He's a great player, like I said, a great person, a family man. Another thing that I'm going to miss with Mohamed Sanu is he's an excellent gadget player. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He can also kick field goals. Like, he's just the Swiss Army knife. He was the Swiss Army knife for this team, man. And all he did was do anything that the coach asked him to do. That's all he did. He was, like I said, an excellent teammate. Always made plays. He was an excellent blocker. And I think that's something that we're really going to severely miss, was him blocking. If you think about the Philadelphia Eagles game, he made the key block, him and Jake Matthews, to spring Julio for that long touchdown run, which turned out to be the game winner, which was our only win this season. In week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles, Mohamed Sanu was out there blocking on that screenplay. He's an excellent blocker in the running game. He's a very physical player and loves to do those peel back blocks and things of that nature. So we're really gonna miss him here in Atlanta, man. He had a lot of style. He loved to wear the different shoes and cleats and things of that nature. He had the brand Bean Talk, and he's just, man, one of the best human beings I've seen on this Falcons team, as far as just a teammate and great leader, man. So we're really gonna miss him here in Atlanta. I wish him nothing but the best. For him, he's going from a 1-6 team to a 7-0 team. So, I wish him nothing but the best. Maybe he can go and get him a Super Bowl ring, being that we didn't pull it off in 2016. But he was one of the key pieces to that 2016 team that went to the Super Bowl. And I always had those memories. That was actually my first game that I ever went to, was in 2016 before we closed the Georgia Dome. I went to the very first game of that season where we played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a nice touchdown catch, which was the first touchdown of the season, I believe, from Matt Ryan. That was his first season with the Atlanta Falcons. No, actually his second season with the Atlanta Falcons, because he came over in 2015. But it was just excellent watching him play, man. We're really going to miss him. And now it's time for these other players, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. It's time for these guys to step up. Justin Hardy to a lesser of an extent. Zacchaeus, the guy we drafted, now he probably get some time to play. They probably activate him and let him get some more playing time. So it's a sad day in Atlanta for seeing one of our great players leave Atlanta. But I know that we did bring over a second round pick, which we do need draft picks at this point. We're above the cap next year because we signed all of these players to these huge contracts, which the players that we signed, it was good that we signed them, and we have to get ready to sign Austin Hooper in the offseason. So I understand it was more of a cap casualty. I don't believe that the Falcons wanted to get rid of Mohamed Sanu. I just think it was a situation where it was mainly business, where they couldn't afford to keep him under contract because of the cap hit number. And we have so many players right now that have high cap numbers, so we had to go ahead and let him go. But moving on from that, like I said, happy trails to Mohamed Sanu, him and his family. I wish him nothing but the best there in New England. I wish him great health in New England. But moving forward, I do want to go ahead and address the games that I watched. The game that I watched on Sunday against the LA Rams, and I actually took some positives from that actual game. Even though we lost the game and we got demolished in that game, 37-10. It was some key things that went on. I read a blog today that talked about Julio Jones in the locker room, that he basically stood up because we know that the media has been swirling that Dan Quinn is going to get fired, or possibly get fired during the bye week, which is next week after this game in week 9. And it was real key that they said, if you've seen on Sunday Julio Jones' face after the game, he looked really ticked. They showed him on the sideline. They showed Arthur Blank standing there looking sad and looking upset, about the season, looking disappointed. It showed Julio Jones on the sideline looking ticked off and looking disappointed. And basically, if you ever heard the saying, when it rains, it pours, that was last game against the Rams. The last play of the game, we catch a punt, and Russell Gage tries to pick up field the punt, and gets hit and fumbles the ball. We were already down 30 to 10, and that's what made it 37-10, because he gets hit on like our 10-yard line. He fumbles the ball, and the ball bounces in the end zone, and the Rams recover it, and that made the score 37-10, and that's basically how the game ended. And Julio Jones looked pissed off and looked ticked off. Arthur Blank was just looking disappointed and sad. I felt bad for Arthur Blank. The stadium was pretty much empty. All of the Atlanta Falcons fans, for the most part, had cleared the stadium. And I just feel bad for our owner altogether. But one thing stood out in a blog that I read today. They talked about in the locker room, when everybody went to the locker room, Dan Quinn was giving his speech, as he does after every game. And they said that Julio Jones raised his hand and said that this is not on Dan, or this is not on Coach Q, but this is on us. If anybody knows Julio Jones, and I've been watching Julio ever since he was at Alabama, Julio Jones is not an outspoken player. He's a very to himself, laid back type of guy. So, and they said that Arthur Blank was actually in the locker room when all of this was going on, when Dan Quinn was giving his speech, and when Julio Jones raised his hand and basically, as one of the leaders on the team, addressed the team, talking about this is not on Coach Q, but this is on us. That this is not all Dan Quinn's fault. This is not the blame, that we have to go out and execute. I feel like that was key. And Julio Jones is a great leader, as I talked about previously when I was talking about Muhammad Sanu. And I believe that that's going to have great credence with Arthur Blank on whether he fires Dan Quinn or not. Because just like Dan Quinn, Arthur Blank is a player's owner. He loves Julio Jones. And I believe any words that Julio speaks, because Julio doesn't talk a lot, anything that Julio says, I think it's going to sink deep down in Arthur Blank's heart. And he's going to take Julio Jones serious. And I believe that before Arthur Blank fires Coach Q, I believe that he will meet with Julio Jones. He will talk to Matt Ryan, because these are our franchise players. And he's going to ask them, what do you feel about the coach, before he lets them go? Because Arthur Blank knows the players whose words should resonate. And to me, Julio Jones stating that after the game is going to resonate with Arthur Blank as an owner. Because Arthur Blank already has been hesitant of firing Dan Quinn, because he's seen Dan Quinn lead this team to a Super Bowl. And he just gave Julio Jones basically a lifetime contract. He gave him a 3-year deal, pretty much all of the money guaranteed up front. He gave Matt Ryan another $100 million contract, and they're going to be on the team for the next 3 years at least. So Arthur Blank is going to take into account what Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, as the leaders of this team, what they feel about Dan Quinn, and what all the leaders, Ricardo Allen, Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, what all of these guys have been stating about Dan Quinn, he's going to take that into account, what these players are saying. And I'm telling you right now, if the players didn't believe in Dan Quinn, I've been seeing all of these Falcons bloggers and people that's YouTubers for the Atlanta Falcons saying that the team is giving up. One thing, when I watched this game, I didn't see any quitting this team. I seen they came out the gate swinging, to be honest. Figuratively and mentally, and like actual swinging, as Devontae Freeman was swinging off on Aaron Donald. These players are really upset about the way that this season is turning out. These players are frustrated. These players are not. I don't really think these players' minds are on fire in Dan Quinn. I really think that we're just in a slump right now. And I've said this in my previous videos when we talked about where I stood on firing Dan Quinn. I don't think the answer is firing Dan Quinn. The biggest issue I see with this Atlanta Falcons team is we're losing in the trenches on the defensive line and on the offensive line. And in this game, it was really terrible. My offensive line and our defensive line, but mainly our offensive line, was the reason that we lost this game. It was a terrible showing of our offensive line. And one thing that I've noticed after watching our game, I told you I watch a lot of football. I watched the Saints and the Chicago Bears play, and I watched the Eagles and the Cowboys play. And I'm going to tell you right now, to win in this league, you must protect the quarterback. You must win in the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line. The team that dominates on the offensive line and defensive line will win in this league. If you're wondering why the New Orleans Saints are 5-0 right now, playing with Teddy Bridgewater, and why the Carolina Panthers continue to win games without Cam Newton, I believe they have lost maybe one game. They're like 3-1 or 4-1 with Josh Allen playing. If you want to know why these teams are consistently winning, it's because they're winning the line of scrimmage. The Carolina Panthers are very good in the trenches on defense and on offense. And they picked up Gerald McCoy from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they already had Dontari Poe that we had on our team. This guy named Vernon Butler. They got some guys, man, on their D-line with the Panthers that are serious players, man, that are big guys. Like I was talking about, those 300-plus pound guys that can stop the run. Lou Kuechly. I'm telling you, man, their team is they're serious. The Saints are the same thing. They do a good job of stopping the run. Because if you watch them play against Dallas, they shut Zeke Elliott down. They won't let nobody run on them. Against the Chicago Bears on Sunday, they shut the Bears' run game down. It made Mitchell Trubisky try to beat him with his arm. So they're winning the trenches, and that's where the Atlanta Falcons team is struggling. So to be honest, I don't believe that we need to fire Dan Quinn. What I think we need to do after this season, and they're already starting to make changes, I would go ahead, let go of some of the players that we need to let go of, and in this draft, strictly draft guys in the trenches. We need to draft some big guys up front on defense. We need to draft another guard, because if you think about it, Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff already started the process of building the offensive line last year in the draft. I didn't understand what they were doing at the time, but now I understand after watching these games on Sunday. They're trying to build and solidify this offensive line. Now, you can't help injuries happening. We can't help that Chris Lindstrom broke his foot in like the first or second game of the season. We can't help that. We can't help the lingering issues as far as injuries we've been having on this Atlanta Falcons team, as far as Keanu Neal getting injured 2 years in a row. And if you want to take it all the way back, I really looked at this Atlanta Falcons team and analyzed what's been going on with this team since the Super Bowl and why we've been spiraling. And the reason this team is spiraling is not because of Dan Quinn. It's spiraling because of our offensive line and defensive line. If you go back and look at the 2016 team when we made the Super Bowl, at the time we had on our offensive line Alex Mack, Jake Matthews, Andy Levitre, Chris Chester, and Ryan Strader. And in 2016, they played the full 16-game schedule and the playoffs without having any injuries to our offensive line. We were the only team in the league in 2016 that had our whole offensive line with no injuries the whole season. And that year, Matt Ryan won the MVP because he was protected. We were able to run the ball. And after that season, 2017, Chris Chester, who had been a long-time player in this league, playing for the Washington Redskins, he was a solid guard in this league. He retired. He decided to retire. So after he retired, that's when we started to spiral, because the next year we had to use Wes Schweitzer in that position at guard, which it kind of worked out. But then in the playoffs against the Rams, Andy Levitre got hurt, and we had to plug in Ben Garland, and that's when we had to play the next week up in Philly. And in that game, they played pretty solid up front. You know, we didn't lose that game because of the offensive line. We lost that game basically at the goal line trying to pass the ball fade pattern to Julio Jones, and the ball went through his hands. So the offensive line played pretty well. But if you go back to last year, again, Andy Levitre got hurt for the season, and we had to plug in Ben Garland, and we had to play with Wes Schweitzer. And Wes Schweitzer and Ben Garland had a terrible season. And Matt Ryan took a lot of sacks last year, over 40 sacks last year. And that's when, at the end of last season, 2018, because 2017, like I said, we did make the playoffs 10-6, won a playoff game. But that's when our offensive line spiraled. We let go of Andy Levitre because he continued to get hurt. And Arthur Blank came out at the end of the 2018 season, which was last year, where Matt Ryan was sacked numerous times, and we couldn't pick up blitz coverage. We couldn't do a lot of things with Ben Garland and Wes Schweitzer playing the guard position. And Arthur Blank came out and said at the end of the season, Matt Ryan plays better vertically than being horizontal, meaning being on his backside, getting sacked all the time, and being hit in the mouth all the time. And that's where Thomas Dimitroff and Dan Quinn listened to the owner and tried to protect our valuable asset of Matt Ryan. We tried to go ahead and take care of that and solidify the line, but we've had injuries on the offensive line. So you can't really blame that on Dan Quinn. You can't blame that on Thomas Dimitroff. Injuries happen in this league, and that's why I go back to why we shouldn't fire Dan Quinn or be so quick to pull the trigger on that. Now, on the defensive line, if you want to blame Dan Quinn for bringing in these lighter and smaller players, okay, go ahead, because he's guilty when it comes to that, far as he bringing in these smaller players and not building a strong defensive line and a big defensive line. Far as the nose tackle position, not bringing in guys, not playing Deidre Sanat next to Grady Jarrett, and not going and drafting the proper players up front. But the thing that I will go in and say to you before you want to judge Dan Quinn on his draft picks and things of that nature is anytime you draft a player, you never know what you're getting. You don't know until you get that player in your building and you actually see him play in games where you actually know how well of a player he is. You never know. When you draft a guy, just because you draft him number one, prime example, look at Vic Beasley. He had one good season or one great season, but since then he really hasn't done anything. You can't really blame Dan Quinn for that pick because he drafted what we needed. A lot of people want to complain and say, well, we should have took Todd Gurley that year. We already had Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. So it was no reason to go and reach and grab a running back that high. Because if you think about it right now, Todd Gurley, I don't know if you've been watching, but he's a shell of himself. A lot of people want to say Devontae Freeman has lost a step. I've watched Todd Gurley play. Todd Gurley has lost a step already. He's still a solid player because he was an all-world talent, but he's not healthy. If you watched him on Sunday, we basically shut him down in the running game. He only had one highlight, and that one highlight he had was just a perfect pass from Jared Goff against Vic Beasley in coverage. Vic Beasley had solid coverage on him. It was just a perfect pass. Sometimes there's no defense for defending a perfect pass. So when I say I've seen some improvements on the defense in this game, I did see some improvements in coverage. I did see some improvements or some adjustments that were made where we were bringing pressure. I seen Devontae Casey on a blitz that threw Jared Goff off. I seen more man-to-man coverage. I seen Kendall Sheffield. Looks like he's getting better and better. Isaiah Oliver is still working on his technique and trying to get things cleaned up. I think we forget that this team is being bitten by injuries as well because this is the second game that Desmond Trufant didn't play, where the Rams basically were fully healthy. And we were out there playing with backup guys in there. Keanu Neal, he was hurt for the season. But I did see Dan Quinn giving some other players a chance. I seen that guy Carter. I think his name's Jamal Carter. He was playing a safety position, number 35, the guy with the dreads. He was out there getting some minutes. He looked okay. He was beat a couple times by the tight end for the Rams. Everett beat him on up the sideline or up the seam for a big gain. But I did see some adjustments. And if you think about this game, it didn't get out of hand until the second half. The first half, it was 13-3. And that's with us doing a lot of things like shooting ourselves in the foot, because really the game should have at least been 6-13 because Matt Bryant once again missed the field goal in this game in the red zone, leaving points on the table. So like I said, this team played with heart. Jalen Graham and the secondary had a big hit. I thought they caused a fumble because all I heard was the crowd with a great roar. I seen them jumping, high-fiving each other, all hype. Jalen Graham, which is our backup tight end, made a nice tackle for loss or on that punt return. He basically stuck the dude on the punt return. So this team was flying around on defense on Sunday. To me, the defense looked improved. They didn't look great because in the second half, it fell apart. But like I said, with this team, it just seems like when it rains, it pours. Devontae Freeman fumbled the ball. He was about to pick up a first down, got hit by Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey put his helmet on the ball, and the ball flew back like 10 yards. Freeman was able to recover his own fumble. And like I said, when I said we came out fighting, Devontae Freeman got into it with Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald lifted him off the ground, and he got upset and threw some punches. He swung a punch, and I understand why he was upset because the Ram players were in our guys' face. They were trolling us on the field. They were trash talking us. Jalen Ramsey was trash talking Julio Jones. But to be honest, Jalen Ramsey didn't really shut Julio down. Julio had a couple catches. He had one nice catch up, I think 2 nice catches up the sideline. And then one, he almost had a touchdown when he dove for the ball and it slipped through his hands. So the ball was just a little bit too far ahead of him. But normally Julio makes that play. And to me, Jalen Ramsey did a lot of talking last game, but he didn't have any picks and he didn't shut Julio down. What shut us down was ourselves. Our offensive line could not protect Matt Ryan. On that interception play, Matt Ryan had no time. And when you have that type of pressure coming at you, when he tried to throw that quick screen pass to Mohamed Sanu that went off his hands, The timing on that play was just thrown off. And the reason that the timing was off is because the pressure was on him immediately on the screen. And Matt Ryan tried to swing the ball out there very fast before Mohamed Sanu could snap his head around, because Matt Ryan was being pressured all day long. He literally had no time to read his progressions. And when you don't have time to go through your progressions as a quarterback, you only can stare down your number one receiver, because as immediately as you get in the ball, as pressure right in your face, it's not much you can do. Matt Ryan, with numerous times, was trying to climb the pocket and step up in the pocket and throw the ball, and he was being clobbered. And that's the reason that he went down with that injury, with that ankle sprain, because the offensive line did a horrible job of protecting Matt Ryan on Sunday. So the game was lost up front. But I did see improvements from the defense, and that was pretty much it. So what I'm noticing with this Atlanta Falcons team, and that's why I say that we can beat anybody and we can lose to anybody at this point, is I thought that the offense would put out a better showing because they played better against the Cardinals. But one thing that I'm noticing with this team, we have a lot of rookies and we have a lot of new players on this team. And this team is trying to gel. So until this team gels, meaning they're used to playing with each other, Caleb McGarry gets some more games under his belt, you're going to have inconsistencies. And that's what I'm noticing with this team. We haven't put a full game together yet, a full 4 quarters on offense, defense, and special teams. I'm noticing with this team, one game the offense plays well, one game the defense plays a little bit better, but the offense plays terrible. This one game the special teams is terrible. We had, like against the Vikings in the first game of the season, we had a block punt. In this game, in special teams, they threw the ball. Their punter, the hacker, threw a first down, threw a pass, which I heard was a legal formation, but the refs didn't call it. But it's like this game, when I said it rained, it poured, nobody played well in this game. The defense played a little bit better, and they looked improved. But if you be honest, we would be on all 3 phases against the Rams, and that's why the game looked bad. But I'm tired of Falcons fans and the media putting this on Dan Quinn, and that's why I was happy that Julio Jones stood up in the locker room right in front of Arthur Blank, who's the owner, and I'm telling you, that resonated with Arthur Blank. Trust me, Arthur Blank talks to Julio Jones. Arthur Blank talks to Matt Ryan. And if they felt that Dan Quinn was a clown or that Dan Quinn has lost his team, they would go to the owner, to his office, and say, or if he asked them, if Arthur Blank came and asked them, what do you think we should do about Dan Quinn? Do you feel that we need to make a coaching change? Trust me, they listen to these players. He talks to these players. Trust me. He be at our practices, because I be watching. He be at the practices in Flowery Branch. Sometimes during games, he'll come down on the field. Like towards the end of games, he'll come down on the field, and he'll come in the locker room after games. And that's the reason that he was in the locker room, because he's trying to get a pulse of this team. That's what Arthur Blank is doing. And if he heard Julio Jones sitting there saying, it's not Dan Quinn, this is not all Dan Quinn's fault, that we're just not playing well, that we need to execute, that we need to take the blame on ourselves, that it's on us, trust me, that resonated with Arthur Blank. And I'm telling you, it resonates with me, because Julio Jones says what he means and means what he says. Julio Jones is all about business and about winning. How many times have you seen Julio Jones come out of the game with 1 catch for 10 yards or 11 yards or 2 or 3 catches, and we win the game? It was a lot of games like that last year where we won games where Julio Jones had 2 catches, 3 catches. And what does Julio Jones always say? What does he always tell the media? It's not about me. It's about wins. I care about winning. And a player that cares about winning wouldn't just speak about Dan Quinn or say something about Dan Quinn about saying this is on us and it's not his fault, if he really felt otherwise, that he just felt like he wanted to protect Dan Quinn's job. I don't believe that he's doing it just because. I don't believe that. I believe that he's saying that because it resonates with me. It's different if this was a player that we feel that that's underperforming, and we feel, okay, well, maybe this player's saying that because they know if a new coach comes in here, they're going to be gone. Like a Devondre Campbell or somebody like that came out and said that, or a Vic Beasley came out and said what Julio said. But it coming out of the Julio Jones's mouth, or if this was coming out of Matt Ryan's mouth, trust me, when somebody like that, of that Julio Jones's caliber, because trust me, Julio Jones has no reason to protect Dan Quinn's job at this point. Julio Jones is going to be around long after Dan Quinn is gone. Trust me, Julio Jones is not going anywhere. We just gave Julio Jones all of that guaranteed money. So Julio Jones knows his job is secure, whether we win or lose, whether we win another game this season. Julio Jones knows that he's not going nowhere. He's going to be in Atlanta as long as he wants to be in Atlanta. The only time that Julio Jones may be gone is if he goes to the front office and says, I want to be traded. Other than that, Julio Jones has no reason to try to protect Dan Quinn at this point. So as Atlanta Falcons fans, we need to listen to these players that's in the locker room, because all of these players that are playing up to par, like a Grady Jarrett, like a Julio Jones, I watch their press conferences. Matt Ryan, Ricardo Allen, the leaders on this team, Deion Jones, these guys have no reason to lie. And these players are saying, we're playing to keep Dan Quinn here. We love Dan Quinn as our coach. They're saying that. If they felt like Dan Quinn was not coming up with a good game plan, they would come right out and say that. So I'm just so disappointed in the media, which I know the media has to ask questions, but some of these questions, like I listened to after last game, some of the questions that they're asking Dan Quinn, I don't know what they want Dan Quinn to say. They asked Dan Quinn, is this season lost? Is this a lost season? What is Dan Quinn supposed to say there? Yes, this season's yes, this is a lost season. No, he has 9 more games that he needs to coach. He has they haven't even played a division game yet. The season isn't over. What do y'all want him to say? Like, these reporters are getting ridiculous and the media is getting ridiculous. They're asking Dan Quinn, do you have the right players right now to play your scheme to win? Is it your scheme or is it the players? Which one is it? Are the players not executing? Or what is Dan Quinn supposed to say in that predicament? He's not going to throw his players under the bus, even if Dan Quinn knows, just like he knew clearly last year, that he didn't have the personnel because all of our guys were on IR and we were a mass unit. What was Dan Quinn supposed to say in that predicament? It's like Dan Quinn is in a lose-lose situation at this point because the media is asking him stupid questions. Like, of course, Dan Quinn is going to say we have the players or the personnel to win games, because he's not going to throw his players under the bus. It's the same thing with asking him if this is a lost season. That's pointless to ask him that. At 1-6, I mean, it's looking like the season's is a lost season, but there's still a lot of season left. And as a head coach, how can you motivate your players if you're telling the media that the season is already lost? How can you motivate your players and coach your players and go back into the locker room or go back out on the practice field if you're telling the media that the players that we have in here, the backup players, are not good enough? Of course, you're not going to say that. So the media basically is asking Dan Quinn impossible questions. They're asking him to answer impossible questions. They're asking these players, because I read another blog that said on Sunday that a lot of the leaders on this team left before the media could really even talk to them. And they said because they're tired of talking to the media, answering questions about players that are not executing, which I believe is true. Like, some of these narratives that the media pushes is just a narrative. It's not the truth. Like, all of these narratives that Dan Quinn has lost the locker room, they're false narratives. All these narratives that the Falcons are trying to tank are not true narratives. The Falcons are going to keep fighting every single game. So if you believe in the false narratives of the media, where they're just trying to sell newspapers and they're just trying to sell magazines and they're just trying to sell blogs and articles, trust me, this team is doing everything they can to win games. If you would have looked at Julio Jones' face after the game, he looked sick to his stomach and he looked pissed off. If you've seen all of those players that ran on the field to help Devontae Freeman when he was literally about to be in a fist fight with Aaron Donald, he was throwing punches because he's frustrated and he's trying to fight back. These players are not giving up. These guys have heart. So all of those YouTubers and bloggers that saying that this Falcons team has no heart, it's not true. Because I literally seen Pat McKinley and defensive players come to the defense of Devontae Freeman. When Devontae Freeman threw that punch, we literally had defensive players run out on the field, mainly Pat McKinley. I seen him run off the bench and was trying to get into it with the Rams players, trying to defend Devontae Freeman. So all of these people that are saying in the media that's saying that the Falcons locker room is separated, and the Falcons locker room, they don't believe in the brotherhood anymore. They're giving up on Dan Quinn. They don't believe in any of his slogans anymore. That's not true. And the reason I know it's not true is because I follow this team just like any of y'all follow this team. And I go and I read a lot of blogs and I read what the players say. I don't listen to the media. I listen to the players. You can hear in their tone when they give their press conferences, Julio Jones is an authentic guy. If he felt that this team or the game plan is not working out, he would say something. He's not going to throw his coaches under the bus, but he's going to give you the authentic truth. Because at the end of the day, no matter what Julio Jones says, as long as he doesn't say anything reckless about Arthur Blank, he's going to give you his authentic self. He's going to tell you what he really feels. Because like I said before, Julio Jones' job is not on the line right now. Matt Ryan's job is not on the line. If we don't win another game this season, Julio Jones is going to be here next year. And he knows that because he just got paid buku money and it's guaranteed dollars. He just got paid over $80 million. So he's not going anywhere. Matt Ryan just got paid over $100 million, guaranteed money. So those players know they're not going anywhere. So no matter what, they could give the media the truth. It's not like they're one of the players that's on the border of being cut or being traded at this point, like a Vic Beasley, where he's on the trading block. So I would take credence in what these players are telling you guys. So stop listening to the media about all of this. The players don't believe in their coach. The locker room is divided because it's not true. These guys are fighting for each other. Tad McKinley has already said on numerous occasions, we're just not executing. We're just not winning games right now. We're in a slump. And like I tell you before, all teams go through losing streaks. All teams go on get in these slumps. The best franchises go through these things. The Pittsburgh Steelers is going through this right now. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are a great organization, a great franchise. I don't hear rumblings of Tomlin's job being on the line right now. Like I said, the Carolina Panthers were going through the same thing. The Saints went through 3 years of being 7-9, not making the playoffs. And Sean Payton lived to see another day. He still right now is the head coach of the Saints. And don't tell me, well, it's because their offense was still good. No, don't tell me that. Because they were losing. And this is a business of production. We're looking for production. And don't tell me it's because he had already won a Super Bowl. That's no excuse. Because Dan Quinn has led this team to a Super Bowl already. He's done what no coach have ever done since Dan Reeves, I believe. Dan Reeves was the last coach to take the only other coach to take the Falcons to a Super Bowl. And that was way back in 1998. Even Mike Smith, who a lot of us like, he had 5 consecutive winning seasons. He didn't even lead the Falcons to a Super Bowl. And I believe that's the reason that he ended up getting fired, because he didn't get the team to the promised land. Dan Quinn has got this team to the promised land. They just didn't win. And they were overtime away from winning that game? Come on, man. Up 25 points? Come on, man. So all of this narrative of let's fire the coach, let's fire all these players, stop it. Stop it, man. Like I said, we need to rise up as a fan base, because I'm disappointed in what I'm seeing out of our fan base, man. It's sad. When I'm watching these games and I literally see nobody at the game cheering the team on, and it looks like every game that the Falcons play is an away game in their own stadium. Like, it's crazy. We have to be a better fan base, because I guarantee you, if the Falcons were to run the table and we were to make the playoffs, all of these so-called bandwagon Falcons fans will be right there at a playoff game, because it will be a home playoff game if we win our division. We'll be right there trying to cheer the team on. But they won't. But they turn their back on their own team when they were going through tough times. I don't care what you say. I don't want fans like that. I'd rather have my limited fans. I don't want no bandwagon fans, man. I don't want to go into a foxhole or go into a fight with somebody that I know is going to run. I want to know when I'm down, when it's 5 against 1, the other person's going to be right there and it's going to make it 2 against 5. I don't want nobody that's going to run. I want somebody that's going to stand in that foxhole with me and fight, man. I want somebody that's going to fight in that dark alley with me. I don't want somebody that's going to run. And a lot of Falcons fans right now are being cowards. I'm going to just come out right out and say it. We're being cowards, man. And I don't want to hear, well, I want to win. Because I can tell you one thing. If the Patriots was losing right now, if the Cowboys was losing, it's been times. The Cowboys was on a 3-game losing streak. The Cowboy fans are fanatics, man. They go all out for their teams. Eagles fans, fanatics. They just won their first Super Bowl. But it was years and years and years where the Eagles couldn't get over the hump. And they still stayed right there with their team. And when you finally do win a Super Bowl, it feels that much better to win. Look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had went through years and years and years of never winning. But winning that one championship felt like 10 championships when LeBron finally brung that whole city a championship in over 50 some years. So we need to do the same for these Falcons, man. We need to be fanatics for our team. We need to be real fans and stop turning our back on our team, because we might as well go cheer for a winning team. If you only care about results, you don't care about the logo, you're not a fan of the logo, you're just a fan of results, go be a Patriots fan, because they already got numerous Super Bowls. They got 6 rings. Go be a Patriots fan, because I guarantee you they most likely will be in the Super Bowl this year. So if you only care about production and I only want to be with the team when we're up and not when we're down, then go be another fan, man. Don't be a Falcons fan anymore, man. I'm tired of all of these Rudy Poot Falcons fans, man. All of these fair weather fans, man. When the team is losing, you want to turn your back on them. When the team is winning, oh, I'm a Falcons fan. It's either one of the two. Either you're a fan or you're not a fan. A fan sticks by their team no matter what, man. A fan goes to the games if they got the tickets and supports their team, whether they're 0-15, 0-16, or whether they're 15-0. They're right there, or 16-0. They're right there cheering their team on, man. And this is the second video that I'm talking about fan base, man, because I've got this video is going way left. I was supposed to be just talking about the Rams game, but I'm just getting disappointed with what I'm seeing out of our own fan base, man. Turning our back on our own team. Listening to the media, which the media never supports the Falcons, but we're listening to them about head coaching decisions. We're listening to them, letting them tell us what we are, how good our team is, when we've seen our team prosper. But we're sitting here talking about, yeah, man, the media is right, man. What? The media most of the time is never right. The media has a job to do, just like the Falcons players have a job to do. The media's job is to sell newspapers, to sell propaganda, whether it's true or not. But with that being said, man, if you like this video, man, go ahead and like, share, subscribe to this page. This your boy Jew. Like I said, hopefully this week we can get a win. I wouldn't even rush Matt Ryan back. I'll let Matt Ryan sit out because we have a bye week next week. So let him get 2 weeks of rest. Go ahead and throw Matt Schaub in there, man. We have nothing to lose at this point. We're playing with house money. Let's see if we can go in and win this game. I'm done ranting about the Falcons fans, man. If y'all want to go support the team this Sunday, if you got the tickets and you're in if you're in Atlanta, go support the team, man, if you're a real fan. And that's all I got to say, man. This is your boy Jew. Like I said, rise up, Falcons Nation, as always. The brotherhood. I'm going to support this team whether they win another game this season. I'm going to continue to do my videos. Like I said, I'm a positive content creator. I appreciate all the ones that have subscribed to my page. But like I said, man, y'all rise up. I have a video for y'all later on this week before the Seattle game where I can talk about the Seattle Seahawks and our next opponent. But as always, like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends about this page. If you enjoy the page, if you're new to this page, definitely share it to all of your Falcons Nation's Facebook groups. Definitely share. And this has been your boy Jew. If you would like to donate to this page, you can always go to the Cash App. It'll be the $ Jew Talk Sports. Peace and love, man. Rise up, Falcons Nation. I'm out. Peace.